Today, we're diving deep into the past, becoming archaeological detectives. We're on the hunt for the spiritual world of a truly incredible civilization, one that built massive, sophisticated cities, but somehow left behind not a single word we can read. This is the story of the silent Harappan people.
And this, right here, is the big question. It's the central mystery that hangs over everything. The Harappans had these amazing cities, but their stories, their beliefs, their prayers, they're all locked away in a script we just haven't been able to crack. So, how in the world do you get inside their heads?
Okay, first things first, let's get our bearings on the timeline. We're talking about a civilization that rose up over 5,000 years ago. It thrived for centuries at the same time as ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, and then it just sort of vanished. It's one of history's great enigmas. So that leads us right into our first major problem, the silence. You see, without any written records, we don't have any epic poems, no sacred texts, no lists of kings to help guide us. We're flying blind. I mean, archaeologists have found thousands of artifacts with these beautiful, complex symbols on them. But until we crack that code, their real meaning is totally lost to us. So we have to put on our detective hats and piece together their spiritual life from the actual stuff they left behind. All right, let's open the case file. If we can't read their words, we have to look at their world. We've got their cities, their graves, and all the objects they made and used every day. Which is a great question, right? How do you even start trying to rebuild a belief system from silent stones and bits of clay? Well, the answer is you look for patterns. You look for the things they clearly cared about. And here are our main leads. We've got their detailed carvings, the way they buried their dead, their little sculptures, and even the architecture of their cities. Every single one is a clue, a tiny window into the Harappan soul. So let's start digging into the evidence. Just look at this thing, the Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro. Yeah, this was definitely not your local community pool. The fact that it's so precisely built, so perfectly waterproofed, it screams that this was a place of huge public importance. It was almost certainly a center for big ceremonies, suggesting that for the Harappans, water itself was sacred, a source of ritual purity. Okay, our next big clue comes from the graves. You can tell so much about a culture by how they treat their dead. The Harappans were buried carefully, with pottery, jewelry, and even tools. What that tells us is pretty clear. They believed life didn't just stop at death. It was a transition, and you were going to need your stuff for whatever came next. Okay, so we've got clues pointing to ritual bathing and a belief in an afterlife. Now the fun part begins. Let's start putting these puzzle pieces together and try to figure out who or what they might have been worshiping. You know, when you look at the sheer variety of all the figures and symbols that we find, the leading theory is that the Harappans were polytheistic. It seems like their gods were deeply connected to the forces of nature that ruled their world, especially things like fertility and the power of animals. And the biggest piece of evidence for this, it's gotta be the incredible number of these female terracotta figurines found all over Harappan sites. I mean, look at the exaggerated features. This wasn't about making a realistic portrait, it was symbolic. The thinking is that these represent a powerful mother goddess, a symbol of fertility that was absolutely crucial for good harvests and, the survival of their people. And now we come to one of the most famous and most debated artifacts in all of South Asian archaeology. This tiny little stone seal. It's no bigger than a postage stamp, but it carries a massive weight of interpretation. So let's take a closer look. So when you break it down, a really fascinating picture starts to form. You have the seated yoga pose, the three faces, the horned headdress, which often symbolizes divinity, and then he's surrounded by animals, a tiger, an elephant, a rhino, a buffalo. He's master of them all. Putting these clues together, a lot of scholars have come up with a really stunning theory that this could be a Proto-Shiva, a very early version of the great Hindu god Shiva, who's also known as Pashupati, the lord of all animals. And that's the thing. That connection to Shiva isn't just a one-off. What's absolutely mind-blowing is the possibility that the Harappan civilization didn't just disappear entirely. Its beliefs may have echoed down through thousands of years, helping to shape the religions that came later on the Indian subcontinent. I mean, just look at this parallel. The deep respect for central, powerful female god, a mother goddess, which we see in thousands of Harappan figurines, doesn't just vanish. It seems to become a core part of later Hindu traditions, where goddesses are still central figures of worship. And here's another incredible link. The bull shows up everywhere on Harappan seals. It was clearly a huge symbol of power and fertility. Well, you can see that same idea pop up again in Hinduism with Nandi, the sacred bull, the loyal companion and vehicle of Lord Shiva himself. The connection is pretty hard to ignore.
But, and this is a big but, as compelling as all these connections are, we have to be really clear. All of this is fantastic detective work, but it's not quite proof. Without being able to read their writing, the case of the Harappan spiritual world remains very much open.
At the end of the day, our investigation hits three major roadblocks. First, and this is the big one, is that undeciphered script. It is the Rosetta Stone we're all still waiting for. Second, unlike in Egypt or Mesopotamia, we haven't found any huge, obvious temple structures. Maybe their sacred spaces were just different, or maybe we haven't found them yet. And finally, without those texts to confirm anything, every theory we have is still just that, an educated guess.
And that leaves us with this one last huge question. If one day someone finally cracks that code, will it just confirm all of our detective work, the mother goddess, the Proto-Shiva? Or will it reveal a spiritual world so different, so alien, that it forces us to rewrite everything we thought we knew? The answer is still out there, waiting, locked away in stone.